Tonight's journey begins not in a palace, or a throne room, or a golden bath. No, tonight, you'll wake somewhere far less glamorous on a pile of hay that itches your back, wrapped in a wool blanket that smells like goat, and surrounded by the sounds of chickens that do not respect personal space. Congratulations, you are now a medieval peasant. And no, there's no going back to sleep, because dawn means work, and work means everything. From lugging water in wooden buckets to spending 14 hours poking dirt with a stick while your feet sink into frozen mud. You'll experience the true meaning of simple life. You'll dig, thresh, patch, pray, and probably get yelled at by a steward who owns more shoes than you've ever seen. And if you're lucky, really lucky, you might just get to eat turnips twice in one day. If this kind of oddly specific role play helps you breathe easier or laugh quietly into your blanket, maybe consider subscribing. No pressure. I'm here each night with strange old fragments of history to keep your mind gently busy while your body slowly powers down. You wake before the sun does, not because you're rested, but because the straw beneath your shoulder is digging in again. Sharp little thorns of discomfort that no amount of tossing or folding has managed to soften. And your blanket, a rough, woolen thing that smells permanently of the sheep it once washed has fallen halfway off, letting the morning cold crawl over your legs and settle behind your knees like an unwelcome cat. You blink into the dim light that leaks through the uneven slats of the wall. The kind of light that is less a sunrise and more a gentle reminder that the dark is over and something harder is beginning. The smoke from last night's fire still clings to the inside of your nose, stale and bitter, a sourness that mixes with the scent of old boots, drying onions, and someone's snoring breath a few feet away. You shift slowly, careful not to wake anyone else, though your movement is nothing new, nothing urgent enough to stir the bodies curled like question marks around you. The dog is already awake. You can tell by the soft rustle of straw near your foot and the brief tap of claws on wood. He won't bark. He knows this hour too. You sit up, slowly. Your back makes its usual complaint. Not sharp, just insistent, like a reminder that your body has known many mornings like this and expects many more. You pull the blanket back over your knees for a moment, not out of comfort, but habit, and you stare at the wall across from you, where the light hits the same knot in the wood that it hits every morning, forming a tiny bright oval that grows as the minutes pass. You watch it quietly. You don't need a bell or a rooster. You know what time it is. Your fingers reach down to scratch at the edge of your ankle, where the wool has rubbed raw, then your neck, then your side. It doesn't help, but you do it anyway. The straw is everywhere, always. You feel it in your shirt, under your sleeves, behind your ears. You wonder, briefly, what it would be like to sleep on something else, on feathers, maybe, or just a wooden board, something flat, something that doesn't poke back. You blink again. Someone shifts near the hearth. A cough, a murmur. The sounds of waking begin slowly, like a song starting on the wrong note. You stand. The air is cold against your legs. You stretch one arm upward, then the other, your joints cracking quietly in the gloom. The shirt you wore yesterday and the day before is stiff with use, and as you pull it down over your shoulders, it fits not like clothing, but like a memory you can't quite shake off. The floor is colder than the straw. You step lightly, careful where you place your feet, avoiding the creaking plank, the bucket, the child. You reach the door and lift the wooden bar with both hands. It sticks. It always does. You nudge it free with your shoulder and swing the door open to a world still damp from the night, where fog curls low along the grass and the coals in the ash pit hiss faintly under the breeze. You breathe in. The air is wet and earthy and full of the promise of hard things. You don't mind. Not really. You step out, and the chill clutches your chest for a second before you push forward. Your feet find the dirt path like they always do, toes curling briefly around small stones as you walk toward the well with the empty bucket in one hand and yesterday's ache already forming again in your lower spine. The chickens rustle in their coop, their beady eyes watching you through slats. One clucks low, unimpressed. The sky is still gray, still waiting. You don't rush. The well is not far, but every step takes effort. Every step counts. You glance back once toward the house, a shape in the mist with smoke just starting to curl again from the crooked chimney. And you wonder if today will be different. You know it won't, but you wonder anyway. Your hand grips the rope. You lower the bucket. The splash is familiar, cold, real. You begin to pull it up. The weight is heavier than you remembered. Or maybe you're just not awake yet. You haul it anyway. And for a moment, as the wind slips through your shirt and the first bird calls sharp and high across the fields, you stop thinking and simply move. Because this is the start. This is always the start. This is how the day begins. And it never begins gently. The handle of the bucket bites into your fingers as you carry it back toward the cottage. The weight of cold water sloshing gently with each step. And though you've done this same walk every morning for as long as you can remember, the chill never softens, never welcomes you, only clings to your knuckles and stings the backs of your hands as if to remind you that this world does not warm easily. The path is narrow and rutted, and in some places the frost from the night has hardened the mud into slick ridges that catch your toes if you don't pay attention. So you keep your eyes down, your breath curling faintly in front of you in slow white puffs that rise and vanish as quickly as they come. Somewhere nearby, a crow calls once from the bare branch of an ash tree, its wings rustling as it shifts, watching you with the same glassy stare it gives to everything that moves. You don't return the gaze. You've nothing to offer it, and it already knows. The sun is just beginning to crest the distant hill beyond the field, its first pale light washing over the low stone fence and the broken plow you left leaning there last week. Too splintered to be useful, too heavy to move, and though you told yourself you'd repair it when there was time, there never was. And you know there won't be today either. Your boots crunch faintly on frostbitten grass. The blades brittle beneath your step, and a small part of you wonders if they'll thaw by midday or if the cold will simply hang there, unmoving, like the heavy breath of winter waiting to press down harder. The bucket swings slightly as you shift it from one hand to the other, your fingers already red from the grip, the wood rough and darkened from years of use, the iron bands rusted and squealing softly where they strain. You remember once seeing a new bucket at the steward's manor, its handle smooth, its shape perfect, and you wondered then what it would be like to lift something that didn't splinter or leak or bruise the palm. That was years ago. You've long since stopped wondering The chickens are awake now, their noise rising from the coop like a tangled knot of hunger and impatience. Their bodies fluffed against the cold as they peck at the corners and push against one another in that frantic, ridiculous dance that never seems to change. One of them eyes you as you pass, feathers ruffled, her stare sharp and judging, and you glance back just long enough to acknowledge the look without offering anything more. You know better than to challenge a hen at dawn. You reach the door, press it open with your shoulder, and step inside. The warmth hits you like a whisper not strong, but present rising from the embers, still glowing faintly beneath the blackened pot hanging in the hearth. And you place the bucket carefully beside it, hearing the water settle with a faint splash that sounds louder than it should in the still room. The others are stirring now, slow shapes under blankets, the kind of movement that speaks not of rest, but of duty, of bones that wake only because they must. You don't speak. No one does yet. There will be time for that. You reach for a small clay cup, chipped at the rim, and fill it with water, sipping slowly as the cold runs through your teeth and down your throat. Refreshing, but not pleasant. Necessary, but not kind. Your stomach growls faintly. There is no bread yet. Maybe a scrap left in the pot. Maybe not. You don't check. You lower yourself onto the stool beside the fire, stretching your fingers toward the ash, watching as the heat touches your skin, but does not reach the ache beneath it. The walls are close here, made of wattle and daub, patched with straw, streaked with soot, and every surface holds a memory there. The line where your shoulder leaned last winter when you were too sick to stand. There, the scratch where the piglet once chewed the doorframe. There, the dark smear where someone wiped mud without thinking. It is not beautiful, but it is yours, or as much yours as anything in this life can be. The sound of someone rising behind you shifts the air. A cough, the scrape of a wooden bowl on the table. You do not turn. You know them by sound, by step, by silence. There is no need for names this early. Only motion. Only the slow gathering of tools and cloth and hands around work that has not yet begun, but already weighs heavy in your bones. You stand again. Take the bucket by the handle. Move it closer to the fire. Watch the steam begin to rise slowly from the surface as the cold begins to ease from its surface. The dog pads in and lies by the door, curled tight, nose tucked beneath tail. You envy him. A little, but only a little. You step back outside, breath catching once more in the bite of wind, and you feel the sky beginning to shift, the clouds breaking into threads of pink and gray, the air humming faintly with the promise of another day exactly like the last. You close your eyes for a moment, not long, just long enough to feel the cold on your eyelids, just long enough to be still. Then you breathe again, lift the empty yoke from its hook on the wall, and begin the walk toward the barn. It's time to carry feed, time to check the fence, time to pretend, once again, that the day won't slip by too quickly, that your fingers won't crack before midday, that your shoulders won't ache before the sun rises fully. And though you know all these things will happen, you also know this: none of them matter more than the water in the bucket, and the frost that coats the ground, and the way the sky never asks you anything except to keep walking beneath it. The loaf is exactly where you left it last night, wrapped in cloth, tucked behind the hearthstone, not to keep it warm, but to keep it from being too cold to bite. Still, as your fingers unwrap the linen and lift the bread into your hands, The crust is hard, almost sharp, a dense little weight that sits in your palm like something quarried rather than baked. And for a moment, you press your thumb into the side just to see if it gives. It doesn't. You sigh through your nose, slow and quiet, not because you expected it to be soft, but because part of you always hopes, in some distant, half-forgotten way, that it might be different this time. It never is. You tear a piece from the edge, your fingers straining slightly at the dryness, and place it between your teeth, chewing slowly, patiently, the effort familiar but never pleasant, and each bite feels like work, like a task added to the long list that hasn't even properly begun. The taste is faintly sour, faintly bitter, not because it's spoiled, but because it never had the chance to be anything else, just coarse ground flour, a pinch of salt, and water stirred by hand in a wooden bowl, passed down too many winters to count. There is no honey today. There rarely is. No meat, no cheese, not even a scrap of dried apple or pickled root to soften the edges, just bread, and not much of it. You sit near the fire as you eat, hunched slightly, elbows on knees, and around you, the room stirs slowly, the boy scratching at his scalp, the woman folding her shawl tighter across her chest. The cough from the far corner, where someone's sleep was shallow and full of dreams they didn't ask for. No one says anything. There's nothing to say. This is how the day feeds you, not with comfort, but with enough. Your teeth find a stone in the crust. You don't flinch. You just pause, spit it into your palm, toss it into the ashes. You chew again. You swallow. And in that moment, the day becomes a little more real, a little heavier, a little closer. The dog watches you from his spot near the door, head on paws, eyes tracking each movement with lazy awareness, not begging, not hopeful, just present. You break off a small bit of crust and toss it toward him. He catches it midair. It vanishes in 2 chews. You both know that's all he'll get until evening. You stand, brush crumbs from your shirt, feel the grit fall onto the floor and vanish into the straw. Outside, the light has grown stronger, the sun beginning to creep over the eastern tree line. Its glow thin and yellow, and already too bright for the cold it refuses to chase away. You push open the door and step out again. Your hands empty now, your mouth still dry, your belly a little less hollow. You blink against the light, stretch once more, and begin walking. Toward the field, toward the chores that stretch from now until nightfall, like a road that never curves. As you walk, the stiffness in your legs begins to fade, replaced by that familiar rhythm of movement that your body knows better than your mind. And your hands curl slightly, as if already remembering the tools they'll carry, the weight they'll lift, the rough edges they'll grip until skin gives way to blister, and blister to callus. You reach the fence and hop it low, one foot after the other, the old splintered post scraping lightly against your shin, and ahead of you, the field lies wide and waiting, its furrows still wet from last week's rain, its soil dark and heavy and filled with tiny roots that never seem to die. You bend, scoop a bit in your hand, crumble it between your fingers. The earth sticks. That means it will drag. That means more work. You nod once, to no one, and keep walking, in the distance. A man calls to his oxen, the sharp syllables echoing across the cold flatness like a bell that no one wants to hear. You raise a hand in greeting. He doesn't see, or maybe he does. It doesn't matter. You reach your patch, Drop to your knees. Begin to work. You pull weeds, break clumps, turn soil. Your breath comes slow and steady now. Each motion a meditation. Not because it's peaceful, but because it's known. Your back bends. Your knees ache. Your fingers disappear into the earth. And still you move. Still you keep going. A worm wriggles free beside your thumb. You pause. Flick it to the side gently. And carry on. Somewhere behind you, someone laughs a short, barking thing, followed by a hiss of pain. You don't turn. You already know it's the boy. Slipping on the frost. He'll be fine. He always is. A crow flies low over the field. It lands on the fence post, watches. You wipe your nose with the back of your hand, sniff once, and continue. The wind picks up again. You don't flinch. You just hunch a little lower. Let it pass. Let it move through you. The field is still quiet. The world is still wide. And the bread in your belly, hard and dry as it was, is doing its work, just like you. Just enough. Just enough to keep you kneeling in the dirt. Just enough to carry you through. You step into the field, and the mud greets you, not like a stranger, but like an old companion who never leaves, who never forgives, who remembers every print of your foot from the seasons before, every stumble, every weight you've placed upon it. And today is no different. The earth sucking at your boots the moment your soul presses down, tugging with a slow, sticky insistence as if to remind you that you belong here. Not above it, not apart from it, but within it. The frost that hardened the surface at dawn has begun to melt now beneath the rising light. And each step brings a new layer of wetness. Each movement carving tracks in the same grooves your hands helped shape weeks ago with nothing but a wooden spade and a bent back. You glance up at the furrows ahead long. Uneven lines stretching toward the distant hedgerow, like ribs of some vast beast buried just beneath the surface, and you know how much of it needs turning. How much still waits for seed, for weed pulling, for the kind of work that doesn't show its value until months later when the stalks rise tall and trembling, and your breath catches at the sight of them. But now there is only mud, and weight, and the slow drag of feet that do not lift so much as shift forward in rhythm with your breath. You lean down, reach for the old wooden hoe, the shaft smooth from years of use, the iron edge dulled but stubborn, and your hands wrap around it like they remember how to move even when the rest of your body protests. The tool sinks into the ground with a wet sound, a muffled resistance, and you pull it toward you, watching as the soil parts reluctantly, rolling over itself like sleep turned to waking, again and again. You fall into the rhythm slowly, your back bending just so, your knees keeping pace, your shoulders settling into the ache that begins softly and deepens gradually, like dusk creeping over a field. And you don't stop. Not yet. Not until you've finished one row. And then the next. The mud finds your hands. It seeps through the cracks in your fingers, curls around your nails, clings to the folds of your shirt where your arms brush your sides. And soon your breath is warm against the cold, your body steaming faintly beneath the layers of cloth that now stick to your skin with damp persistence. You pause for a moment, wipe your brow with your sleeve. It does little. The sweat is already there again. You glance behind you at the rows completed, the footprints filled with water, the lines drawn crooked but honest, and you nod, not in pride, but in acknowledgement. This is what you do. This is who you are. The clouds above shift slowly, gray and wide and heavy, but not yet threatening, just watching, just passing. And the wind picks up again from the north, carrying with it the faint scent of wood smoke and manure and the sweetness of distant hay, reminding you that somewhere not far from here, another field waits, another hand lifts, another back bends just like yours. You are not alone in your labor, but you are alone in this moment. You grip the hoe again, return to the soil, work. There's no one to talk to. The others are scattered across the land like fallen seeds, each in their own furrow, each with their own patch of burden. And if voices do rise now and then, they are carried off too quickly to mean much. Just fragments of laughter or complaint or song that fade into the rustling of the hedges and the low creak of leather straps. The sun has risen higher now, though it gives little warmth, just light, pale and soft and slightly hazy, casting long shadows behind every ridge and tool. And you keep moving, not fast, never fast, but steady, deliberate, your breath falling into the rhythm of the strokes, your body remembering that it is not a machine, but something more fragile, more persistent, something that can hurt and keep going. Your knee cracks slightly as you shift your stance. You don't pause, you don't curse, you just keep going. The birds above circle lazily now, and a single magpie lands on the fence post ahead, cocking its head to watch you, black eyes blinking slowly as it hops once, then twice, then turns away. You wonder what it sees in you, if anything. If your movement registers at all beneath its small sky, you push the hoe deeper, pull again. The soil rolls, and again. The pattern holds. Your hands are stiff now, your breath slower, your stomach tightening in hunger that you know will be answered only much later. And even then, with something simple, something small. But you are not thinking of that now. You are thinking only of the line in front of you, of the stretch of earth that has not yet been touched, of the promise buried beneath it that will not come without this, without you. A gust of wind blows stronger. You brace against it. Let your weight sink into your heels. Let the wind pass through your clothes, through your bones, through the hour that surrounds you like a shallow bowl. And still, you move. Still, you work. The hoe lifts. The hoe falls. The mud parts. The ground accepts. And you, in turn, keep pressing forward, one furrow at a time, one step after another, until the line is finished and your arms lower, and the ache that has been building in your shoulders finally arrives in full, blooming like a second skin, heavy and deep. You look up again. The sun is higher. The sky is brighter. You exhale once, sharply, then softly, then look back at the line you've made. And for just a moment, just a breath, the mud does not feel like your enemy. It feels like something that knows your name. You don't expect gratitude. Not in this life. Not from the land. Not from the sky. And certainly not from the animals that live with you. But there's something particularly humbling about the way a chicken looks at you when you reach into her nest box first thing in the morning. Hand outstretched, fingers tentative, eyes slightly averted as if you're negotiating with something sacred and wild and entirely unreasonable. And she fixes you with a stare so sharp, so disapproving, that for a moment you feel like a thief caught red-handed in your own house. The hen is not large, not fierce in any obvious way, but her feathers are puffed and her stance is firm. And as you crouch beside the coop, the air still damp and chill with last night's dew, she does not move, does not blink, does not yield even a fraction of her perch to your presence, and it takes a slow breath, and then another, before you speak to her in a voice that's softer than you mean, a kind of half-muttered apology, a joke between you both, and maybe, just maybe, she allows it. You reach under her, warm feathers brushing your knuckles, her body heat clinging to your skin like the last embers of a fading fire, and your fingers curl around the smooth shell of the egg still warm, still perfect, and you lift it gently, slowly, as if pulling a treasure from beneath a sleeping dragon. She clucks once, low, flat, not a warning, not quite, but enough. You back away, cradle the egg in both hands. The shell is pale, speckled, slightly rough beneath your thumb, and you carry it like something precious. Because it is. You don't drop it. You don't dare. You turn toward the house again, your boots pressing faint impressions into the soft earth. The morning sun, now rising just high enough to catch the rim of the roof and the tops of the trees beyond the yard. The light shifting from gray to gold in a slow cascade that touches everything but warms nothing. The egg joins 3 others in a small woven basket beside the hearth, resting carefully on a bed of straw that still smells faintly of the barn. You consider cooking one. You won't. Not today. They're better saved, better used in trade, or in baking if the flour stretches far enough this week. And besides, the hunger in your belly is quieter now, buried beneath the ache in your arms and the cold in your feet, and the dozen tasks still waiting beyond the fence. You glance back toward the coop. The hen is still watching. You nod once. She turns away. The moment is over. You step out again, back into the morning, back into the weight of things. The tools are where you left them, leaned neatly against the side of the barn beneath the overhang where the rain can't quite reach. You pick up the rake, feel its familiar heft in your hand, the smooth groove worn into the shaft where your fingers have gripped it every day for weeks now, and you begin to drag it through the yard in long, slow pulls, clearing leaves and twigs and the small debris that always seems to gather overnight as if the world reshuffles itself while you sleep. The sound is soft, repetitive, almost musical, the whisper of straw, the crunch of gravel, the occasional knock of wood against stone, and your body begins to move in rhythm. Not because it wants to, but because it must. And with each motion, something within you settles a little more deeply into the day. The boy comes out behind you, still rubbing sleep from his eyes, hair a mess of straw and sweat, his shirt half tucked, face already smudged with yesterday's dust. And he says nothing, just yawns, stretches, picks up a broom from beside the doorway, and begins sweeping the step with slow, uneven strokes. You glance over once. He doesn't meet your eyes. He doesn't need to. You keep working. The chickens have begun to scatter now, their early fury spent, their interest shifting from you to the ground, scratching and pecking with frantic precision, their feet kicking small clouds of dirt into the air as they chase invisible prizes. One finds a worm and dashes off, the others following in a flurry of feathers and complaints. And for a brief moment, the yard is chaos. Then silence again. A rhythm returns. The sun continues to rise, sliding now past the tips of the thatched roofs and painting pale gold across the dew that still clings to every leaf, every blade of grass, every weather-worn beam of the fence that rings your world in lines you know too well. You pause near the garden. The frost has spared most of it this week. The cabbage looks tired but intact. The turnips are stubborn, but still growing. The herbs, brittle but clinging to life, release a faint scent when you brush them with your sleeve sage and onion and something more bitter, something old. You crouch, pull a weed, then another, and again. It's slow work, but quiet, honest. The boy joins you. He doesn't say anything at first, just kneels beside you, starts pulling too. His hands are small but fast. You let the moment stretch, let the silence hold, and when he finally speaks, it's about the hen, the one with the look, the one who never blinks. You smile, but don't laugh. She deserves respect. You say, and he nods. Solemn, serious. It's a lesson worth remembering. You both keep working. The air begins to warm, just slightly, and the light shifts once more. Brighter now, less forgiving. And you rise, brush dirt from your knees, stretch your back until it pops in two places, and reach for the bucket again. It's time to carry water to the animals. Time to sweep the shed. Time to check the fence posts for rot. The day moves on. It always does. And as you pass the coop once more, the hen is back on her perch, eyes half closed, feathers fluffed, and she doesn't look at you this time. But you nod anyway, out of respect, out of habit, out of something deeper than either. Because sometimes it's the smallest things that know exactly who you are. The wind starts small, just a whisper against the edge of the roof, a brush of breath through the thatch that doesn't yet move anything, but makes you pause for a second, your hand resting on the old wooden latch as you step back into the house, the bucket of water heavy in your arms, your legs aching with the familiar stretch of effort already spent. And then the sound grows, a soft moan first, like something ancient remembering how to speak again. Then a low rush, slow but certain, moving through the seams in the walls, between the boards of the shutters, under the door like a cold finger trailing across the dirt floor. The house is still small, always smaller when the wind rises, as though the air pushes everything inward, shrinking the space, huddling the corners closer, pulling your world tighter until even your breath feels folded in half. The shutters rattle once, then again, not violently, just enough to remind you they were built to keep out light more than weather. You set the bucket down by the hearth, careful not to spill, and the water settles with a quiet slosh, rippling gently as the cold air presses in. You stand there for a moment, hands on hips, the chill wrapping around your ankles where your socks have slipped again, and you exhale through your nose, slowly, watching as the faintest curl of vapor rises before it disappears. The others are inside now, moving about in low silence, someone sweeping, someone turning bread dough on the board, someone stretching the fire with a bundle of dry twigs pulled from beneath the bed. And though no one says much, you all feel the same thing. The shift in the air, the tightening of the sky, the way the wind seeps into the bones of the house and makes even the walls seem to sigh. You sit on the bench near the wall, your back pressed against the rough plaster, your body slowly surrendering to the slight dampness always there. And you watch the fire, small and stubborn, crackling with effort as it climbs up the kindling like a tired animal crawling home. The flames are orange, not gold, and they lean hard to one side when the wind slips through the chimney. You pull the blanket across your lap, scratch at your forearm beneath your sleeve, and listen not just to the fire or the wind, but to everything else the wind moves, everything it touches, like the tin cup rolling slightly on the shelf, or the creak of the doorframe that always groans when the breeze comes from the west. A child speaks softly behind you, a murmur, a question. You don't catch it, but someone else answers, gently, and the quiet falls again. You close your eyes, just for a breath, just to feel the cold more clearly, to mark the difference between skin and air, between inside and outside, between the warmth of the fire and the chill that waits just beyond it. The roof above you groans once, a long dry creak of reed and rope, and a few crumbs of dust fall near the hearth. You open your eyes, look up. Nothing breaks. Not yet. But you keep watching for a moment longer. The boy crouches near the hearth now, holding a stick, poking at the edge of the flame. His face lit in flickers, mouth slightly open, eyes lost in something only he can see. And you remember being like that small, curious, believing the fire was alive, that it spoke in crackles and snaps, that it listened when you whispered to it. You shift your legs, stretch your feet toward the warmth. The wind hisses again, louder now, pressing against the door, not hard, but steady, as if asking to be let in. You don't move. You know it can come through on its own. It always does. You glance around the room, the broom resting against the wall, the clay bowl with the spoon still inside, the line of herbs hanging near the ceiling that sway gently as the air passes over them, and you feel it again. That shrinking of space, that narrowing of time, the way the house becomes a shell against something bigger than you. And all you can do is sit there, breathe, and listen to the walls, remembering how to bend. Outside, the trees move. You can't see them, but you know it. You've lived long enough near trees to hear them before they speak, to feel the way the wind lifts their branches and shakes their leaves like a warning, like a hymn, like a lullaby that doesn't soothe so much as remind. You stand, walk slowly to the door, rest your palm against it. The wood is cold, smooth in some places, splintered in others. You lean in, close your eyes, and listen. Just wood, just wind, just the world doing what it does. You step back, return to your place by the wall. The fire shifts again. You smell smoke, faint but sharp. You reach for the iron hook, stir the coals gently. The spark rises, dances, fades. The others continue their work. The room holds, the wind waits. You speak. Finally, just a few words, not a story, not a command, just something to remind the room you're still in it. A voice answers, low, familiar, the kind of voice that belongs to spaces like this, the kind that doesn't rise, doesn't need to. The fire responds, lifting just enough to warm your toes again. You lean back, close your eyes once more. The wind presses harder now, not angry, just determined, testing the seams, finding the cracks. It will not win. Not today, but it doesn't need to. All it has to do is remind you it's there. And it does, over and over, until the sound becomes part of the room, part of the breath, part of the silence you carry like a second skin. And still, you sit, and still. The fire burns, and still, the walls hold. For now, that's enough. You hear him before you see him, always. His voice cutting through the air like a blade wrapped in cloth, sharp and soft at the same time. Never shouted, never strained, but somehow carrying across the field, across the yard, across the quiet work of your day, as if the words were carried not on breath, but on wind. And by the time his boots appear at the edge of the path, or his shadow crosses the doorway, you already know who it is, already know what it means. His tone isn't cruel. Not exactly. Just firm, measured, worn smooth by years of repetition, by giving orders without needing to think, by knowing no one will challenge him because he speaks with the weight of the manor behind him, with the thin silver of authority that never rusts. And even when he asks, it's not really a question. Not in a world where obedience is older than the fence posts and deeper than the well. You look up as he approaches, hands still dirty, shoulders still tense, and you wipe your palms on your tunic out of reflex, not because it makes you cleaner, but because it makes you ready. And readiness is the one currency you still control. Has dressed plainly, but finely. Clean boots, unpatched sleeves, a belt that holds a knife for show rather than use, and he smells faintly of oil and dried herbs, of ink and old leather and things you'll never own. His eyes flick over the yard, noting the stacked wood, the hay left out of place, the chickens that have wandered too far again. And though he says nothing at first, the silence speaks just as clearly as if he had recited a list of faults. You brace, not visibly, just enough. His words come low and level. A reminder about the grain quota, a mention of the hedge in need of trimming, a passing comment about the widow's complaint over the cart path. And though none of it is directed sharply, every sentence lands like a weight placed on your shoulders. Another task, another measure of expectation that adds to the invisible ledger you carry in your head. You nod, not too much, just enough. He notices if you don't. The boy behind you shifts slightly, scraping his heel against the dirt, and the steward's gaze moves toward him like a breeze touches grass light, but impossible to ignore, and the boy straightens at once, lifting the broom, pretending to sweep something that isn't there. And the steward's lips twitch, maybe amused, maybe not, but he says nothing. He never does. He just turns, gestures once toward the road that leads toward the northern field, and you understand. That's where he's going. That's where you'll need to be. Soon. His boots crunch the gravel as he walks away, and for a moment, you watch him. The way his stride never falters. The way the wind does not seem to touch him the way it touches you. The way the cold clings to your sleeves, but leaves his coat unstirred. You do not envy him. Not really. But you do not forget him either. You go back to your work, the rake in your hands again, the pile of straw in the corner still waiting, and the air around you feels thinner now, as if his presence pulled something from it, something you hadn't noticed until it was gone. The others move more carefully after he's passed, more quietly, as if the sound of his voice has left a shape in the air that hasn't yet faded, and you all step around it without thinking. The fire crackles in the hearth. A pot begins to boil. The dog lifts his head, then settles again. Time resumes, but slower. You step outside once more, letting the cold bite at your neck, letting the wind brush the tension from your chest, and you look toward the field. It's waiting, as always, but now it feels different, not because of the work, but because of the weight that words can leave behind, the way a single voice can bend the shape of a day, not through anger, but through certainty. You lift the yoke again, adjust the straps across your shoulders. The wood is rough and familiar, worn smooth where your collarbones have carved their memory into it, and you begin the walk. The mud sucks at your boots. The sky presses low and gray. A hawk cries in the distance. and the sound of the steward's voice lingers not in your ears, but somewhere deeper, somewhere you can't quite shake, like the echo of footsteps in a room that is already emptied. You do not resent him. He is not cruel, not like others. He does not strike. He does not spit, but he does not see you either, not really. Not fully, and you wonder sometimes what he thinks of you, of all of you. These bent-backed, dirt-skinned hands who make the bread he eats and build the fires he sits beside. You wonder if he sees you as people, or as process, or as pieces in a game he barely needs to play. You wonder if it matters. You reach the edge of the field. The wind slows. The silence returns. You drop the yoke beside the path. You kneel once more and begin again. It doesn't look like much. Not when you pull it from the ground. Not when the soil clings to it like it doesn't want to let go. Not when the root is gnarled and the skin is rough and streaked with earth and worm channels. But when your hands wrap around it, when you brush the clumps of mud from its shoulders and cradle it in the curve of your palm, like something that just barely survived the winter. It becomes more than food. It becomes proof that something still grows, still endures, still offers itself up in the middle of all this cold and aching. You carry it back to the cottage slowly, not because it's heavy, but because you don't want to drop it, don't want to risk bruising it, don't want to lose what little softness it might have inside. And the wind presses at your side like a child tugging at your sleeve, asking to be let in, asking to take something, anything, and you lean your body against the gusts, turning sideways like you've always done, like your father did, like everyone here learns to do, because the weather doesn't argue. It just insists. Inside. The fire is low again, struggling to remember how to be warm, and the others are gathered near it, hands outstretched, backs hunched, and you lift the turnip slightly as you enter, a small wordless offering, and the old woman in the corner lifts her eyes, squints once, and nods, not praise, just approval, just acknowledgement, just a shared understanding that today might not be generous, but at least it won't be empty. You place the turnip on the table, fetch the knife with the notched edge and the loose handle, and begin to peel it with slow, careful strokes, the blade catching in places where the skin is too thick, your fingers curling to protect the flesh beneath. And though the smell is sharp, peppery, almost sour, it's familiar, it's welcome, it's something real in a season where many things are imagined. A little broth is left from yesterday. You scrape the fat from the pot with the back of a spoon. Add water from the bucket and let it heat while you slice the turnip into chunks. Uneven, but close enough. And as the fire rises again, its warmth licking gently at your knuckles, you drop the pieces into the pot one by one, listening to the soft hiss, the faint pop, the slow change from solid to soft that takes time and patience, and the kind of silence that only exists when people are too tired to speak. The scent fills the room, nothing rich, nothing indulgent, but something grounding, something that makes shoulders lower and breaths grow deeper. And when the youngest child looks up, eyes wide, cheeks smudged with ash, you offer a small smile, not because the meal is fine, but because it exists, because it will fill the space where emptiness waits. The pot simmers. You stir with a wooden spoon, cracked at the edge, and the turnip softens beneath your touch, breaking slightly at the corners, releasing its color into the broth. And you think, not for the first time, about how strange it is that something so plain, so disregarded, can become a feast if you let it, if you believe it, if you let your mouth water just enough to convince your mind that what you're about to eat is more than just boiled root. You ladle it into bowls, 4 of them, maybe 5 if you scrape the sides, and pass them out in silence, each person accepting it with hands cupped around the warmth, steam rising like morning fog, lips parting slowly as they blow the heat away, and no one speaks, because the moment is full enough. You take your seat, lift your bowl, dip the spoon. The first mouthful is hot, salty, too thin but welcome, and the turnip breaks apart against your tongue, soft but firm enough to chew. And for a few long seconds, the day doesn't hurt. For a few seconds, you don't feel the cold in your boots, or the burn in your knees, or the scratch in your throat. For a few seconds, you are just a person holding a bowl of something warm, and that is enough. The fire crackles beside you. Someone laughs softly, without meaning to. Just a breath that escapes in surprise at how good it tastes. How strange it is to be pleased by something so small. And you feel it too, though you don't show it. You just keep eating, slowly, carefully, letting the spoon scrape gently against the wood, letting each bite carry you forward like steps along a path that only exists inside this room. When the bowls are empty, you lick the edge of yours, not out of greed, but out of respect, and set it beside the hearth, where the dog will sniff it later, tail wagging just once before he curls up again. You wipe your mouth with your sleeve, lean back against the wall, close your eyes. The wind outside is quieter now, or maybe you've just stopped listening. The others settle again, one pulling the blanket tighter, one curling beside the fire, one resting their forehead on folded arms. No one speaks. No one needs to. The joy is not loud. It's not loud, but it is real. It's in your belly, where the warmth sits. It's in your hands, where the spoon once was. It's in the way your shoulders don't ache quite as much as they did an hour ago. It's in the turnip, the one you pulled, the one you cooked, the one that reminded you gently, simply, that even in a day full of dirt and cold and work and silence, something soft can still be found. And for now, that's enough. You don't remember when it happened. Not exactly. But at some point, your hands stopped looking like yours and started looking like the tools you hold. Their shape molded by the handles of hose and buckets and ropes, by the rough grain of wooden wheels and the callous whisper of dry hay. And now, when you look at them, palms open, fingers curled slightly inward, like leaves in frost, all you see is bark thick, ridged, lined with cracks that never quite heal, knuckles broad and knotted, nails dark with the stains of earth and ash, and days that never end when they're supposed to. The skin no longer peels in winter. It just splits, tiny lines at first, then wider, deeper, until the blood rises in narrow beads that don't sting anymore. Not really. Just warm for a moment before they crust over and vanish beneath the dirt that settles into every fold like it belongs there. You try to scrub them clean sometimes. Not for vanity, not for comfort, just for the strange memory of smoothness that once lived there. The soft curve of a child's palm, or the clean grip of a man too young to know the weight of repetition. But no matter how hard you scrub ashes, water, even a rock once when you were younger, it never really goes away. You gave that up a long time ago. Now, you simply rinse, pat them dry, and keep going. Today, you're mending the fence again, the section near the edge of the western field, where the boards always warp after the frost, and the nails pull free like they're tired of holding on. You kneel in the dirt, your knees braced against cold stone, the hammer heavy in your hand, not just because of its weight, but because of how long you've held it, how many seasons it's passed through with you, how the handle fits perfectly now between the bones of your fingers, as if the wood remembers the shape of your grip better than your own skin. The wind tugs at your sleeves, pulling them back, exposing your wrist to the cold, and you ignore it. Eyes focused on the post in front of you, its top chipped, its edge splintered, and the wire hanging loose like a thread on a worn shirt. You press it back, hold it steady, lift the nail between thumb and forefinger, set it gently against the wood. The first tap is always light, just enough to catch. Then the second, then the third. The rhythm returns. A pattern you followed so many times your body does it before your mind catches up. The sound of iron on wood, the sting in your shoulder, the bounce of tension through your wrist, and the sudden shift as the nail sinks home. You pause, breathe, move to the next. The boy watches from a few feet away, squatting beside the path, turning a rock over in his hands, pretending not to look while his eyes follow everything you do. And you feel the weight of his gaze, the silent question of it, the quiet echo of what his hands will become someday. And you think, not for the first time, about whether it's a kindness to show him or a cruelty to let him learn it on his own. He asks if it hurts. You don't answer at first. You look down at your palm, at the black line of an old splinter you never got out, at the ridge of skin that never softened after the burn. And you say, eventually, that it doesn't hurt now, which is true, mostly. He nods, doesn't ask again. You keep working. The boards go up one by one. The wire tightened, the posts straightened. The weight of the world made manageable through small tasks completed in quiet succession. And though your back aches, and your fingers twitch, and your breath fogs heavier with every passing hour, you keep going, because it has to be done, because the fence doesn't fix itself, because the animals don't stay in on hope alone. A sparrow lands nearby, pecks once at the ground, flutters off. You keep working. The sun is higher now, though not much warmer, and the light glints off the iron nails like the flash of something finer, something more precious. And for a moment, you imagine that each one is a jewel, hammered into the edge of the world, holding everything together with your hands as the anchor, your effort as the thread. It's a silly thought, but not unwelcome. The last board goes up, the last nail sinks in. You sit back, arms resting across your knees, the hammer falling into your lap with a dull thud. And for a long moment, you do nothing. Just sit there, breathing slowly, your hands resting palm up in the cold air, the skin chapped and raw, the creases dark, the fingertips numb. You flex them gently, watch the way they move like branches in wind, stiff at first, then easier, and you feel again the weight of every object they've held: the rake, the ladle, the axe, the handle of your father's old plow. You touch your thumb to each finger, one by one. They still work. That's enough. The boy brings you a cup of water. You take it, nod, sip. The metal is cold against your lip, the water colder still. But it tastes clean, and you swallow it slowly, letting it sit in your chest, like a stone settling into earth. The wind rises again. Your shirt flaps at the hem. A leaf skitters across the dirt path. You hand back the cup, stand, stretch once, hands on hips, spine arching until it cracks. Then you gather your tools, sling them over your shoulder, and begin the walk back toward the house. The boy, following a few paces behind, your hands swinging at your sides, not graceful, not smooth, but steady, weathered, and worn in all the ways that speak of labor, of days layered on days, of skin that remembers everything the world has asked of it and still finds the strength to answer. Not because it is strong, but because it has never been allowed to be anything else. The field stretches out in front of you like a great patchwork of silence and memory. Every furrow, a line drawn by someone's back, someone's breath, someone's forgotten name. And as the afternoon deepens and the sun leans westward, the light shifts into something thinner, something gold but already fading, and the shadows begin to grow longer, stretching across the rows of soil like fingers reaching for something they can never quite hold. You stand near the edge, where the path gives way to loose stone, hands resting on the top of a fence post still damp from the morning's frost. And you watch as the wind moves through the dry stems, left standing stalks of rye, and the last of the hollow thistles brushing them sideways in slow, sweeping waves. And for a moment, the field almost seems to breathe. The air is cooler now, not sharply, but enough to make you shift your weight, enough to bring your hands back into your sleeves, enough to remind you that light is no longer promise, but retreat. And the day, though it still has tasks in it, no longer belongs entirely to work. A hawk circles above, distant and small against the pale blue sky, its wings held wide, its body motionless except for the smallest corrections, and you track it out of habit, eyes squinting upward, the brightness outlining the edge of its shape until it tilts and dives behind the trees, lost again. You don't say anything. No one does. The boy beside you leans against the fence, arms crossed on the top rail, one foot propped against the bottom rung, and together you stand there, wordless, as the shadow of the house begins to stretch slowly toward the barn, as the clouds thicken just a little, like wool soaked in sky. You think of how many seasons you've seen this same light, this same slow hush that settles across the land when the sun starts to fall and the crows begin to perch instead of fly, and the trees no longer whisper but hold their breath. You think of your father and his father, and the way their days must have ended just like this, with dust on their skin and soil in their boots and nothing left to do but breathe and wait for the dark. The field is quiet now. No tools move, no voices rise, just the creak of the gate when the wind touches it, just the low hum of the insects that never quite sleep, just the slow rhythm of your own heart against the stillness of it all. The boy points suddenly, not sharply, just a small gesture, and you follow his hand to a deer at the far end of the pasture, stepping carefully along the line of the trees, head low, ears high, a flick of white tail now and then as it pauses, listens, moves again, and the way it walks makes you forget the weight in your arms, the stiffness in your knees, because there is something soft in that movement, something quiet and sure and meant for a world gentler than this one. You hold your breath without meaning to, then release it slowly. The deer disappears into the underbrush. You lower your eyes. The sun slips lower still. The fence at your side casts its own jagged shadow across the dust. Each post a tall dark mark like a row of teeth. You wonder how many days remain until frost covers everything again, until the mornings arrive with air that cuts instead of chills, until the fire must be fed before light and kept burning long after you sleep. You wonder how many turnips are left, how much salt, how soon the steward will return with more words wrapped in linen. You push away from the fence, roll your shoulders. The boy follows, steps quiet, head down, and you don't speak as you cross the field together. Boots crunching softly in the loose soil, the last of the weeds brushing your ankles, the shadows following just behind you like dogs too tired to bark. When you reach the center, you pause again, just for a breath, just to listen. And there's a sound, a low flutter from somewhere overhead. And you glance up to see the sparrows shifting in the hedges, wings brushing branches, their tiny bodies puffed against the wind, their feet gripping thin twigs like hope holds on to nothing. You crouch beside the row nearest the tree line, fingers brushing the edge of the soil, still damp, still loose, still warm just beneath the surface, and you press your palm flat into the dirt, not to test it, not to measure, but to feel it, to let the land speak back in pressure and grit, in the scent of loam and root, in the silent hum of something older than you. The boy does the same, his hands smaller, his movements slower, and neither of you say a word as you rise again. Dust your palms and begin the walk back. The barn casts a long shadow now, wide and crooked, reaching across the yard toward the steps, and the chickens have already begun to gather at the coop door, their bodies tucked low, their feathers shifting in the wind like leaves that never fall. You glance up at the sky. The clouds are darker at the edges now, the light more brittle. It will be night soon. Not now, but soon. You reach the door, lift the latch, step inside. The warmth is faint, the fire low, but the room holds you like it always does. Walls close, smoke curling upward, voices quiet. You remove your coat, set your tools aside. The shadows remain outside for now, but you know they'll follow. They always do. They are part of the field, part of the fence, part of you, and you carry them gently, without fear, because you know them, because they know you, because they are not threats. They are reminders. The day is ending, and the work has been done, and that is enough. You feel it first in your shoulders, that dull, stretching pull that begins not when you lift the bundle, but when you know you're about to. The kind of ache that starts before the work begins, as if your body has learned to anticipate not just the task, but the way it settles into your bones, like weather settles into old stone. The wood pile is smaller than you'd hoped, the logs scattered where the boy dropped them earlier, some split, some crooked, some too thick to burn easily. But you don't curse, don't sigh, don't waste breath on what's already done. You just step forward, stoop low, and begin gathering them one by one, arms crossing in front of your chest as you cradle the weight, the bark rough against your forearms, the edges digging into the hollow just above your elbow. You balance the pile carefully, shift your grip, press it tighter to your body, and straighten slowly, spine humming, jaw set. The barn door is behind you, the path to the cottage ahead. It's not far, but far enough. You walk slowly, boots pressing down into the soft dirt that's begun to thaw at the surface, the cold beneath it still holding firm, still reminding you that spring may whisper, but winter never truly lets go. The bundle creaks faintly as you shift your grip again, arms tightening, and you adjust the top piece with your chin so it doesn't slip sideways. The air smells of dust and dry leaves. of smoke rising faintly from chimneys across the village. And somewhere in the distance, you hear the wheelwright's hammer echo once, then fade. You keep walking, step by step. The wood does not grow heavier, but your arms begin to shake a little, not from strain, not from weakness, but from the sheer repetition of it. The way muscle remembers all the times it has done this before and prepares to do it again, over and over, as long as there is wood to carry and fire to feed. You reach the door, push it open with your shoulder, step inside. The room is dim, the fire low. A single beam of light slanting through the gap in the shutter and casting long, soft shadows across the table. You lower the bundle onto the floor with care, the logs clacking against one another, sending a small cloud of dust into the air that catches the light for a moment, like gold before it disappears again. You stand still for a breath, then another. You roll your shoulders back, stretch your fingers, press your palms together to feel the grain of the work you've just done, and you exhale slowly. The fire needs feeding, not desperately, but soon. You pick one piece from the pile. Feel the weight of it in your hand, the familiarity of it, the way each log carries its own story, the rings inside it, the notches left by the axe, the crack where a knot gave way, and you place it gently onto the coals, not dropping it, not rushing it, just laying it down like something being put to rest. The fire answers softly. A new flame curls up the edge. The others in the room glance over. No one speaks, but they see. You return to the bench, wipe your hands on your shirt, take a sip of water from the cup left beside the hearth, and you close your eyes as the warmth returns to your face. Not fast, not full, but enough. The dog stirs from his place by the door, lifts his head, blinks once, then lowers it again. The boy is in the corner, stacking kindling into small bundles with careful hands, his brow furrowed in concentration, and you watch him for a moment, not to correct, not to teach, just to see, just to witness the quiet rhythm of learning, the way he moves slower than you, but more deliberately, how his fingers still know softness, even as they harden. You remember when yours were like that, before they learned to carry without complaint, before they learned the shape of effort without end. The wind taps gently at the shutter. The fire cracks once. You lean forward, elbows on knees, eyes on the flame. The light flickers across the stones, dances across the edge of the kettle, paints soft gold onto the side of the hearth. You watch it. You don't think. You just breathe. The weight in your arms has faded, or maybe you've stopped noticing it. The logs beside the fire will last the night, maybe the morning too. You'll fetch more tomorrow. Of course you will. You always do. You always have. The wood waits. The world waits. But for now, this moment holds, and that is enough. The smoke doesn't rise quickly. Not anymore. Not like in the mornings when the air is dry and the wind is still. Not when the wood is green or the hearthstone is damp from the night. And so it hangs now, low and curling, slipping across the rafters in long, lazy tendrils that sway gently when someone walks too close or the fire shifts just enough to breathe differently. And you sit beneath it, head tilted back slightly, eyes tracing the gray path it takes across the room. Not really watching, just following, letting your thoughts move the same way slow, circular, quiet. The room is still, not silent, but still. The kind of stillness that comes after the work is done. after the wood has been split and stacked, after the animals have been fed and counted, after the last patch in the roof has been nailed down just well enough to last another week, maybe two, and you feel it now in your bones. That end-of-day ache that's not pain exactly, but presence, the awareness of every step taken, every object lifted, every muscle called to serve, and now left humming with fatigue. The others are resting too. One near the hearth, with her hands wrapped around a mug. One near the door, half asleep, with her back against the wall. The boy, lying on his stomach near the fire, drawing lines in the soot with a stick and whispering something to himself. Maybe a song. Maybe nothing at all. The light is nearly gone now. The last of it clings to the upper corners of the room, golden and faint, flickering as the shutters sway slightly on their hinges, and the fire has become the center of the world again, its orange glow pulsing softly, its heat spreading slow and wide like a blanket pulled over your shoulders by a hand you don't have to see to recognize. You shift in your seat. The wood beneath you creaks. The floor creaks back. You roll your neck gently, hear it pop, then settle. And your hand moves almost without thinking to the mug beside you. The contents lukewarm now, but still comforting, still grounding, still something you can hold that gives more than it takes. The smoke curls again, a slow ribbon above your head. You wonder if it ever leaves, really, or if it lingers overnight, slipping back down with the cold, seeping into the blankets, the walls, the straw, becoming part of the very air you breathe until every breath is seasoned with soot and memory. You take a sip, let the warmth fill your mouth, then your chest, then your belly. It's not strong, just hot enough, just enough. You think of tomorrow. You think of the roof on the shed that needs more thatch, of the fence post by the north field that leans more each day, of the bucket with the cracked handle, of the string of onions hanging above the fire, nearly gone now, of the path to the well that will freeze soon if it hasn't already. You do not sigh. You just think. The smoke dances again. The fire shifts. A spark jumps, lands on the hearthstone, fades. The dog snores softly. You close your eyes, just for a moment, just to rest, just to let the world tilt without you. You feel the warmth at your side, the flicker of light behind your eyelids, the small sounds of a room not quite ready for sleep, but too tired for speech. And in that stillness, something inside you eases. You are not alone. Not in this house. Not in this hour. You open your eyes slowly. The smoke is still there. Thinner now, bluer, like mist drawn from a river's edge. The wind outside has quieted, or shifted, or gone. You set the mug down, rub your palms together, watch the boy draw another shape in the ashes, his brow furrowed and deep. Silent thought. You let the moment pass, then another. The fire will need more wood soon, but not yet, not now. You sit a little straighter, roll your shoulders again, let your breath slow, let it deepen, let it fall into the rhythm of the smoke, of the rafters, of the evening. Outside, the sky has gone dark. Inside, the world holds, and the smoke, still dancing above your head, carries the days and with it, curling gently toward the roof, toward the stars, toward the quiet beyond. It starts with a silence, not the heavy, hollow kind that comes when something is missing, but the soft, expectant kind that settles in a room just before something begins. A hush that falls not because anyone commands it, but because the world itself seems to know that what comes next matters, that it requires a stillness, a centering, a pause. You sit at the table, elbows resting on the worn wood, palms open, not moving yet, just listening to the faint creak of the beams above your head, to the rhythmic tapping of water dripping from a crack in the eaves, to the soft scuff of someone shifting their weight in the corner. The bowl is in front of you, wide and deep, its surface stained with years of use, with flour that never quite washed away, with fingerprints pressed into its rim by hands long gone, but still remembered in the shape of the dough, in the way it rises, in the way it feeds. The flour is cool to the touch, a little damp from the air, and as you pour it in slowly, carefully, it lands with the softest sound, a hush within a hush, a breath within a breath. You add the water next, not all at once, just a trickle at first, the stream catching the edge of the bowl, cutting small rivers through the flour, disappearing into its heart. Your fingers follow, not a spoon, not a tool, just your fingers, bare and stiff, moving slowly, gently, drawing the ingredients together with motion so old they feel inherited, passed down not in words, but in instinct. The dough resists, it always does. At first it clings to your fingers, wet and uneven, more slop than substance, but you don't rush it. You press, fold, turn, press again. The rhythm builds, your muscles remember, your breath adjusts. The dough begins to change beneath your touch, becoming smoother, firmer, taking shape in your palms like something sculpted from breath and patience. The boy watches from the hearth, his knees pulled up to his chest, eyes following your movements as if they hold the secret to something older than fire. And maybe they do. You keep kneading. You shift your weight forward. Let your hips lean into the movement. Let your back curve over the bowl. Let your shoulders carry the weight of this moment, of this task, of this simple act that will carry all of you one more day into the week. You don't think about hunger. You don't think about need. You just move. The dough begins to breathe. You can feel it not literally, not exactly, but in the way it pushes back, the way it springs slightly beneath your hands, the way it holds warmth where there was none. You dust the board with flour, just enough to keep it from sticking, and begin to shape the loaf, not perfectly, not evenly, but with care, rounding the edges, tucking the ends beneath, smoothing the surface with your palms. You let it rest, drape a cloth over it, sit back, and wait. The silence returns, softer now, filled with warmth, with the faint sound of rising, with the scent of yeast barely beginning to wake. You sip water, stretch your back. The boy asks if it's ready. You shake your head. Not yet. You both watch it. Nothing happens. And yet everything happens. The room darkens slowly. The fire glows brighter by contrast. You close your eyes, just for a moment. When you open them again, the dough is taller, rounder, smoother, alive. You lift it gently, place it on the stone, slide it into the heat. The smell begins almost at once, faint and sweet and earthy, curling around the corners of the room, reaching into your sleeves, into your lungs, into the quiet places of your mind that remember hunger even when it's not sharp, even when it's just a shadow. The others shift closer to the fire now, drawn by scent, by promise, by memory. No one speaks. You watch the crust begin to form, the golden color rising slowly like morning across the surface, the steam whispering upward every time the door opens and closes again. The bread is not grand, not perfect, but it is yours, and it is here, when it's ready. You lift it from the stone with hands wrapped in cloth, the weight familiar, the heat biting through in pulses, and you set it on the board, resting, steaming, whole. The knife waits. You cut slowly. The crust cracks beneath the blade. The inside is soft, warm, alive. You pass the slices around. No plates, just hands, just gratitude. The taste is simple. Salt, grain, fire, and something else. Something like time made solid. Something like care. You chew slowly. Let it linger. Let it fill the spaces hunger once claimed. And for a while, no one moves. The bread softens everything. The shadows, the silence, the ache. You sit back, wipe the crumbs from your hands. The fire crackles softly. The smoke rises gently. The quiet returns. But now, it carries fullness. It carries bread. It carries peace. It doesn't fall all at once. Night it gathers. It seeps. It curls around the edges of things, draping itself over roof beams and fence posts, slipping into the folds of your clothes, into the space between footsteps, until the world is no longer divided by color, but by shadow. And you sit with your back against the wall, arms resting across your knees, watching as what little light remains slides down the walls like oil poured from a slow hand. The fire still burns, but softer now, its edges dulled, its heat a low hum against your shins. And in its glow, everything appears quieter, slower, wrapped in the soft gold of fatigue. The boy has fallen asleep near the hearth, curled on his side with one arm tucked beneath his head, his breath steady, his fingers twitching slightly in dreams that carry him away from fields and fences and frost. You watch him for a while, not with worry, not even with affection exactly, but with a kind of deep, still recognition, the way you might watch a branch sway in wind you no longer feel, the way you accept the movements of something not fully yours. The others speak in low voices near the table, their words fading in and out like threads tugged through worn cloth, and you don't listen for meaning, only for rhythm, for the soft cadence of familiarity, of people used to each other, to this space, to the way silence and speech weave together into something that holds more than language ever could. The room smells of bread and smoke and wool, of things used and lived in and worn. And every now and then, the wind pushes against the door again, not asking to come in, not demanding anything, just reminding you that it's there, that the night outside is not quiet, but vast, and that beyond these four walls, the world still stretches out into cold, into dark, into stars you won't see tonight. You shift slightly. Your spine presses into the stone. The warmth of the fire pulls at your skin like sleep pulls at your eyes, and you blink slowly. Let the weight of the day settle into your chest, like a stone lowered into water. You think of the field, of the fence, of the turnip, of the boy's hands, of the bread. You think of nothing and everything, all at once. The kind of thinking that doesn't need to solve, only to drift. You don't know how late it is. Time doesn't move in hours here, only in tasks completed, in steps taken, in how close the shadows come to your feet. You feel them now, stretching across the floor like a second skin. You let them come. You don't light the lantern. There's no need. The fire is enough. A spark jumps in the ash. A log settles. You draw the blanket tighter around your shoulders. Let your head rest against the wall. Let your eyes close. The weight of the day pulls you inward, not down, just inward, into breath, into stillness. into that soft space just before sleep, where the world fades, not because it ends, but because it no longer needs to be held so tightly. The boy sighs in his sleep. Someone coughs quietly near the door. The dog shifts. The floor creaks. And then it stills again. You feel the night folding over you like a cloak. You do not resist. You do not rise. You stay. And as the fire flickers its last, and the smoke rises once more toward the dark beams above, the world outside disappears, and the only sound left is breath yours, theirs, the house itself, slow, even, real. The night pours like oil, and it holds you gently. The wick is small, almost nothing. A tiny thread dipped in wax so many times it now holds its own memory of flame. And as your fingers strike the flint and coax the spark to catch, there's a pause, a breathless flicker, then light thin at first, shivering, uncertain, then growing taller, steadier, until the candles glow, cast soft shadows against the wall, and the room leans just slightly toward warmth again. And you sit there, watching it burn, this one point of light in a house full of quiet. The wax already beginning to pool at its base, slow and thick like honey drawn from a cold jar. You place it in the niche on the mantel, just above the hearth, and beside it rests the worn wooden carving, the shape of a saint whose name no one speaks anymore, not out of disrespect, but out of the simple erosion of time. The way names fall away when the prayers become fewer, the stories dimmer, the faith less about words and more about survival. And you look at it for a moment, not asking, not hoping, just recognizing. The way one tired face sees another and says nothing, but understands. The boy is still asleep by the fire, and the others have turned in, wrapped in blankets, curled close to the walls where the warmth lingers longest, their breathing even and soft. The kind of sleep that comes not from comfort, but from sheer exhaustion. The kind that doesn't ask questions, that doesn't dream, that simply pulls the body under and holds it there like water. You remain seated, still, hands on your knees, shoulders rounded forward, and you let the candle burn. It's not a feast day, not a named day, just an ordinary one. But you light it anyway, not for celebration, not for ritual, but because some nights feel like they need a marker, something to say yes. This happened. We were here. We passed through this day and made it to the other side. And the candle does not speak, but it agrees in its silence. You watch the way the flame bends now and then, reacting to the air as it shifts through the cracks in the wall. And you think of all the nights before this one, of how many times this same wax, this same wick, this same flame has been kindled not by you, but by hands now long buried, hands that carried buckets, sharpened blades, tucked children in and whispered to the dark. And though you do not know their names, you feel them. Sometimes, in the small gestures you make without thinking, in the way you rub your palms together when the cold sets in the way you fold the blankets just so, in the way your voice lowers when you speak by firelight. The candle crackles slightly, a small snap as the wax catches and burns faster. You adjust the wick with a bit of bent iron kept for that purpose, and the flame steadies again, taller now, casting a soft glow across the rough stone of the mantel, across the iron pot that hasn't been emptied yet, across the boy's sleeping face, round and soft in rest, cheeks flushed with heat, one hand curled beneath his chin like a thought not yet spoken. You let your eyes rest there for a moment longer, then turn back to the flame. There's something in it, not comfort. Exactly. And certainly not hope, but a kind of presence. A reminder that even the smallest light can hold its ground against the dark if given the chance, if tended, if allowed to burn without interruption. You reach for the small tin of salt kept near the hearth and sprinkle a pinch near the flame. Not for flavor, not for need, but because your mother did it, and hers before that. And there are gestures that linger even after the reasons have been forgotten. The salt sizzles faintly on the stone, then is gone. The flame remains. Outside, the wind returns, brushing against the walls, rattling the shutters in lazy rhythm. But it doesn't feel like intrusion. Only reminder, only presence, only the sound of a world still turning just beyond the firelight. You lean back slightly. Let your head rest against the wall. Let your body soften into the shape the day has made for it. And you breathe in slowly through your nose. The air filled with smoke and wax and wool and wood. The scent of a life lived quietly but fully. You close your eyes for a moment, just to rest, just to let the dark settle in without resistance. And when you open them again, the candle is still there, still burning, still giving off its small golden circle in a room full of sleeping breath and silent saints. And that is enough. That is more than enough. It's not soft anymore. Not really. Not the way it was when it was first stitched together. Not the way you imagine it might have been when the threads were new, and the wool was thick, and the hands that made it still believed in the comfort of things. But the blanket still holds warmth, not just from the fire, not just from the bodies it's draped over each night, but from the years layered into its seams, from the nights it's seen, from the way it has shaped itself to the curve of backs and the bend of elbows and the quiet settling of tired limbs. And as you lift it now, from its place near the bench, shake it gently to loosen the dust. Fold it once, then twice, and drape it across the boy's shoulders, where he lies half-curled near the embers. There's something in the way it falls, the way it covers him. That feels like memory, like time doing something kind. He doesn't stir. Not much, just shifts slightly, murmurs something soft without meaning, and nestles deeper into the straw mat, his breath warm against the wool, his fingers curling reflexively into the edge of the cloth as if it belongs to him, as if it always has. You step back slowly, bare feet brushing the stone, your toes cold despite the heat still pulsing from the fire, and you pull another corner of the blanket up over his shoulder, tucking it gently beneath his chin. A motion so practiced, so familiar, that you don't even think about it, don't even notice the way your hands move with a rhythm older than words. You sit back on the bench, pull your knees to your chest, rest your chin on your folded arms. The fire crackles softly beside you. The shadows lean long and thin along the floor. The night holds still. This is not a blanket that was made to be pretty. Its patches don't match. Its stitches are uneven. One corner is frayed beyond repair, but it holds. It is held through winters where the wind clawed at the windows like a starving thing, through nights when no one could sleep, and through nights when no one wanted to wake, through births and fevers and the long, slow quiet of grief, through every kind of silence. You remember lying beneath it as a child, when the room was too dark and the world too big, and the weight of it was the only thing that could hold you in place, that could tell your body it was safe to be still. You remember pulling it over your own knees on days when the rain wouldn't stop. When the cold came in, not from the door, but from your own chest. You remember wrapping it around the shoulders of others, around arms that had carried too much, around hands that could no longer grip the tools they once held without effort. And you think now, as you watch it rise and fall gently with the boy's breathing, that it remembers too, not like people do, not with names and moments and regrets, but with shape, with texture, with the soft imprint of who it has held. The house creaks gently as the wind pushes against it. Not a threat, just a presence, just the same reminder it always brings that nothing outside these walls will wait, that the world continues its slow, relentless turning whether or not you move with it. But tonight, you don't move. You stay still. You sit with the blanket. You sit with the fire. You sit with the breath of the room. Your eyes drift closed for a moment, and when they open again, everything is the same, but softer. The embers glow low now. The boy shifts again. A mouse scurries along the far wall. Barely a sound. The blanket holds. It will need mending soon. One of the seams is pulling loose. The edge near the bottom hem, where the wool meets the linen backing. And if left too long, the stuffing will begin to work its way out, and the blanket will lose its shape, its weight, its warmth. You make a note of it silently. You'll patch it tomorrow, or the next day, or the day after that, when your hands are less sore. For now, it's enough that it covers him, that it holds the heat, that it tells him without words that the day is over, that the work is done, that for now, here, in this circle of quiet and flame, there is nothing more to be asked of him. You lean back against the wall. Let your head rest. Let your breath slow. Let the room fade into the kind of silence that needs no explanation. The blanket shifts gently with the weight of sleep. It holds. It always does. It rises slowly. The moon not rushing, not grasping, but climbing with the kind of steady, assured grace that only time knows. And as its light begins to filter through the cracks in the shutters, through the gaps between the beams, it settles over the room like a second blanket, paler than firelight, colder, but no less intimate. And you feel it even before you see it. The soft shift in the air, the way the corners of the room begin to glow with a quiet that isn't born from heat, but from something older, something still. You sit with your back against the wall, head tilted just slightly toward the sliver of moonlight that falls across the floor, and you watch the dust dancing there, tiny motes suspended in the path of the beam, moving with a rhythm not their own, swirling and turning in slow, lazy spirals that make no sound and cast no shadow. And it's strange how much beauty can live in what is barely seen, how something so small can hold your attention longer than words, longer than thoughts, longer than memory itself. The boy is still asleep. So are the others. Their breathing creates a soft rhythm, uneven but soothing, a kind of lullaby born from the simple truth of presence, of bodies at rest in a space that has learned how to hold them. You do not sleep yet. You are not ready. You are still listening to the creak of the rafters above, to the wind brushing the shutters in its long, slow exhale, to the sound of a world that refuses to end just because the fire has burned low. You let your hand rest on the floor, palm down, fingers splayed, the coolness of the stone grounding you, steadying you, reminding you that though your thoughts drift upward, outward, toward the moon and whatever stories it carries tonight, Your body remains here, weighted and warm, a part of this quiet, this night, this breath. You wonder, for a moment, who else sees this same moon? Who else lies awake beneath its gaze, wrapped in the same hush, cradled by the same light? And it's strange how comforting that is. How even in solitude, you are not truly alone. Because the moon does not shine only for you. It shines for the world. And in that sharing, something soft is born. You remember stories told to you in childhood of wolves and saints, of lovers lost and paths lit only by moonlight, and you know now that none of them were entirely true. But that doesn't matter, because stories are not meant to be true. They are meant to hold truth, to carry the weight of what cannot be said plainly. And so you let the stories rise again in your mind, like mist off a field, thin and sweet and fading even as you reach for them. The moon shifts slightly in the sky. Its light creeps across the floor, brushing now against the toe of your boot, and you imagine it touching you like a blessing, like a benediction from something far away that does not speak but sees. You breathe in, deep, slow. Let the air fill your lungs. Let it sit there. Then exhale. You do it again and again, not to calm yourself, not to sleep, just to be, just to exist in this moment where nothing is asked of you except presence. The fire crackles faintly. The embers are low, orange and red and barely alive, but still holding on, still warm, and you know you should feed it again soon, or let it die for the night. Let the dark come fully. Let the cold reclaim its space. You don't decide yet. You just sit. A fox cries somewhere in the distance, a thin sound, sharp but not urgent, and the wind answers, curling around the corners of the house like a thought half-formed, a sentence not yet spoken, and you close your eyes to feel it better, to hear it not with ears but with skin. The moonlight touches your face now. You do not move away. You stay. Let it wash over you. Let it find your features. Let it know you. And in that stillness, in that brightness wrapped in silence, you feel something loosen inside you, something unnameable, something that does not ache but has waited long to be seen. The boy stirs, mumbles something. His fingers twitch, but he doesn't wake. You watch him again. You smile, just a little, then close your eyes once more. And for a moment, there is no house, no field, no task. Just this, just you, just the moon, just the knowing that somewhere, someone else is sitting beneath the same silver sky, breathing in the same night, and thinking maybe, just maybe, this too is enough. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare, doesn't rush in through the door or blaze across the sky like a story told too loudly. It arrives the way a memory returns, slow, quiet, almost reluctant, spilling over the edge of the shutters in a thin wash of gray-blue light that creeps across the floorboards and finds the edge of the hearth where the embers have long since faded into soft piles of ash. And you feel it before you see it. The shift in the air, the way it tastes faintly of damp soil and cold dew, the way it presses against your skin like a hand reminding you it's time. You open your eyes slowly. There's no urgency, no call, no sound except the stretch of wood as the house breathes around you and the distant, rhythmic knock of a loose shutter on the barn. You sit up, slowly. The blanket slips from your shoulders. The stone beneath you is cool now, not biting, not cruel, just honest. And your joints protest softly as you stand, not with pain, but with remembrance, with the weight of a body that has carried another day and is ready, once more, to carry another. The boy is still asleep, his face buried in the crook of his arm, the blanket tangled around his legs. You step lightly, pull it back over his shoulder, careful not to wake him yet. Let him have these last few minutes where the world does not ask anything of him. You cross to the window, pull the shutter back just a little, enough to see the morning, enough to greet it. The sky is pale and low and soft, not quite clouded, not quite clear. The kind of morning that doesn't promise sun, but doesn't threaten storm either. And the trees beyond the fence are still, their branches heavy with the weight of last night's breath. The field is waiting. Of course it is. The tools are still where you left them. The path still bears the shape of your boots. Nothing has changed, and yet everything is new again. That's the gift of morning. Not that it makes things different, but that it lets you begin again. The fire is dead. You kneel and rebuild it, hands moving without thought, stacking the kindling, feeding the coals, coaxing the first curl of smoke from the dry edge of splintered wood. And when the flame finally catches and climbs, you sit back and watch it grow. The orange light dancing across the pot you left unwashed, and the wooden spoon balanced precariously on the edge of the bench. Someone stirs behind you. A cough, a shift, then stillness again. The house begins to wake. Not loudly, not all at once, but in breaths, in motion, in the slow, familiar return of life to a space that has always known how to hold it gently. You rise, fetch water. The bucket is heavy, the rope damp from mist, but your grip is steady, your steps sure. And as you pour the water into the kettle and set it above the fire, you feel again that quiet pride, not of accomplishment, but of continuation, of showing up again to the same tasks with the same care. The boy wakes, rubs his eyes, blinks at the light. You smile at him, say nothing. He sits up slowly, hair tousled, face still warm from sleep, and you see in him the reflection of everything you remember and everything you hope to leave behind. The others begin to move now, too. A murmur, a stretch, the soft padding of bare feet across stone. You pass out cups, tear what's left of the bread, share it, not because it's feast, but because it's enough. And together, in that small, fragile light of the day just born, you eat, you breathe, you exist. The morning finds you not with noise, not with obligation, but with presence, and you meet it not with resistance, but with the quiet dignity of the ones who remain. The fire crackles, the steam rises, and you are here, still here, always here.